Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Andrew King from Kingsley Working Dogs.
Andrew will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and I'll win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with Real Kangaroo Meat.
Hey Andrew, how you going?
All right, thanks Laura. Now,
Dan?
Good, thanks mate. Nice and chilly start today for yourself?
Yeah, we had a frost. It wasn't too bad actually this morning, but where I went up where Hard and Dugong, it was about -3. So yeah, starting to get cool. Yeah, but Tumut surprisingly is about the same height as Cootamundra, even though we're up in the mountains. But it's quite low down in the gully,
Yeah.
So the climate. Yeah, everyone thinks it's really high, but it's not really.
There you go. You learn something new every day.
Mm.
I wouldn't have thought of it like that, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a heaps higher myself. Deceiving.
Yeah.
So where's home, Andrew?
Now at Tumut on the river. Finally, after managing for many years and living in manager's house, we finally built a house ourselves. So I think I owed it to my wife to finally live in our own house. And so we're on the river here, and I'm about 50 meters from catching a trout.
Oh, happy days!
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Bait fisherman, spinner fisherman, or fly fisherman?
No, look, I haven't learnt the fly job yet, but I just on lures.
Beautiful.
But,
your surface lures?
What's that?
Your surface lures there, mate?
Surface lures? They're Tassie Devils. They're just
Get a bit of weight, get down.
Yeah, because the river's it flows really fast, so you got to have a bit of weight.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And before Tumut, do you want to sort of tell us, where you've been before there and how you've ended up?
Well, yeah.
Where'd you grow up, mate?
I don't really want to do a life history, but look, I was born down near Mount Gambier. My father had it was like a soldier settlement block after the war, but that's too small for me to operate, and I sort of had agriculture in the blood. And from 13 to 17 years of age, all my summer holidays, I used to go to Carroloo Station out from Port Augusta towards Iron Knob. Very hot time, and I used to rousey in with whichever shearing team was there at the time. And I think that's about where I started getting keen on, looking at dogs. I was only young then, but just seeing how not to work dogs and sometimes how to work dogs. But then after that, after school, I went to jackarooing McLaughlin's place at Nangwarry and also at up near Keith in South Australia.
Yep.
And they were cattle sheep properties. Followed that with Marcus Oldham College at a management college, farm management. Overseer, and then managed my first farm at 24.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that's a brief history of what I did. And then from then on, basically, I've tried to go each time I met on the management of properties, go from one size property up to the next size. That was my aim. To to look at it as a profession in the farm management world, and enjoyed managing people, enjoy managing stock, and also the mixed farm side.
Which was more challenging, mate? Managing people or stock?
Yeah, people definitely, especially in my recent job with about 100 people. So yeah, certainly.
And what is that job these days?
Well, look, I've actually finally resigned, but I'm still on a contract basis checking their farms. But it was managing a general manager of an overseas owner who owns a property at up there, 30,000 hectares on Liverpool Plains, 2 properties,
Yeah. Wow.
roughly running about 5,000 cows up through there. And then down south, what are we, about 40,000 hectares down south of 2 properties. And then the biggest, the hardest part about all that was Apollo Estate, where there's 45 staff.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm not a polo person by any means.
Yeah.
I've never even hit a ball, but they just like to have a person that's more in the management side. Right, we've got plenty of all the polo managers, underneath that are running the horses and running the embryo programs and that sort of thing. But they wanted someone that wasn't tied up with the horses to manage the actual, all the staff and the estate. Yeah. So
Make sure they're making money and not just breeding horses.
yeah, well, that doesn't make any money, but
No.
all the farms are totally commercial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So a bit of extensive travel there too, mate. I know you're always buzzing around.
Yeah. Well, it was each month up to, Windy Station's just south of Karuna feedlot up there, west of Corindai. The other one's Prima, south of Gunnedah. And then you've got one at Cootamundra and one at Harden. Yeah, so, the ones down south are a lot of sheep.
Yeah.
Big numbers of sheep.
And how long were you GM for that particular role?
It's now 15 years. I've only just resigned.
Yep.
And basically what I'm doing now on a quarterly basis, just visiting those farms. So it's nice to have some time, time on my own.
Yeah.
But no, they've been interesting places, certainly.
Yeah, and mate, you mentioned about like managing 100 people, and a lot of our previous guests have actually worked under you and look up to you as a mentor. And I know this is probably going to be hard for you to probably answer because I know you're a fairly humble person. But what do you think? Why do you think those people look up to you for leadership? Like, what is it about yourself? Like, have you got I suppose, a mantra that you've tried to stand by as being in that particular role?
Not really. I mean, I think the greatest thing, with management is empathy. Is to really consider staff, just listen to what they really want, where they want to go, and certainly try to help them. Have a look at them if they're a station hand or a junior person, and just if they want to go ahead, really help them to go ahead. Because quite often I've been on places where if you've got ambition, they try to squash it.
Yeah.
They think, oh, you want to leave us, do you? Whereas we've been on the other way around. But I think just respect for their skills, because when I was a young manager, I thought I was, as good a welder as anyone or as good with the dogs as anyone and all this sort of thing. And all of a sudden I started managing, and I suddenly realised that all these fellas that we're employing and while I'm managing, they're better than me.
Yeah.
They're damn sight better than me at work because I'm not doing it anymore. And you just to have respect with their skills and actually tell them. I find that's really important that they actually get a pat in the back now and again, because when you're managing, a lot of the times you certainly don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not too many pats on the back.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's actually Scott Mullins might have said something similar. Like, if people are coming through and you're moving on and progressing, like you actually have to look at that as a positive, although it might be a bit of a pain in the neck at that particular time. But like you got to think like we've done something to help this person get along and good on them. So there you go. What actually there you go. What do you look for in someone young that when applying for particular roles?
Well, I mean, down south they've got they've just got to be, have a passion for agriculture, really. And you look for that really keen young person. And I mean, on the southern properties, dogs are really important. on all the, with so many sheep. If they haven't got, if they don't like sheep, they're not much good.
Yeah.
If they just like cattle, well, they don't suit down south. They probably suit up at Windy Station. We're all cattle up there. We're only cattle there. You have a look. I don't go on what they've, whether they've gone to an agricultural college or what they've done like that. You'd probably be looking at a bit of tertiary training for managers, maybe. But for the young ones, you're just that real passion for agriculture, and I like it if they've got a interest in a lot of things, not just stuck on on one thing, not just on sheep or cattle, but a keen dog on a tractor and do a few other things too.
Yeah.
So if you just want to sit on a harvester all day with your earphones in, probably not the perfect view, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what we used to, up north on the northern properties with, what do we got? There's 10,000 hectares of, crop. And so sitting on those big air-conditioned tractors these days is, some fellas that have got diesel in their blood.
Yeah.
It's something they enjoy. Yeah.
But all these properties, you're driving about or you're flying about? What's your mode of transport?
I enjoy the driving. When the owner comes for this present job, I've been on sometimes, when he goes up, I can go up with him in the helicopter. Yep. But no, I drive. But I enjoy it, from here to Windy Station, 7 hours. And I actually it's quite a nice bit of time to catch up on things, phone calls and just travel. Yeah, I don't mind.
Screen time.
Yep.
Yeah. It's good for the soul.
Yeah.
And so when did you first sort of get into dogs?
Probably, I'd say when I was around 24 and I started managing the Marcus Oldham after I was a student, and I left as an overseer, and I came back to the college. They had a commercial farm, and they asked me to manage that. And there's a fellow you probably wouldn't have heard of him, but Jeff Jolly. Jeff Jolly was one of the top 3 sheep trialers in Victoria, and had a real skill in training. He was really like we talk of Greg Prince.
Yep.
And anyway, Jeff used to give me a couple of border collies. I mean, I had kelpies, but he used to give me. I was very keen to go out on a Sunday afternoon and watch how he trains them. And he used to train them in a lot of his direction just in a catching pen with a piece of poly, moving it around, inch by inch, and doing all the 3 sheep stuff. But I was fascinated with it. And then he'd give me a couple of young border collies and say, Andrew, can you break these in for me and do the early work? So I used to do that and then send him back. And then he gave me one at one stage. But I had a border collie stud, and I sent border collies to Canada actually. Border collie pups. I think I've got a stud somewhere. I wouldn't have used it for 50 years, but it was about then that I bought a bitch from Elfinvale, and she was just a really good little, hack dog. But my first really good dog I bought was a Liscana dog from Des Vincent, and I was managing the commercial farm for the farm management college, and it was really worked well for me because as the students graduated, I'd get them to buy the pups. See.
Love it.
It was really good, and in those days we bought our first. My wife and I bought our first couple of units with the sale of those of pups, but also that dog. He was my first dog, and I ended up. That's my first wins in trials. And so, at that age, and I was absolutely really stuck with it then, and it hadn't left me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So has your sort of taste in dogs evolved from then to now? Or, you said you did play around with a few border collies even though you liked your kelpies?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's some really good borders around, and I've got nothing against border collies. In fact, I really like to work them. I haven't got any now, but I just found, at the end of the day, like where I went after that, managing that first farm, I went to Karamat in Victoria, and I was just on my own managing a lot of sheep and cattle, and I just realised the importance of a really good dog. And I did have a border collie then, and the kelpies, and that Liscana dog and his progeny. And I just thought at the end of the day, I had young dogs on a race that were actually really keen to back with the kelpies, and the border collies were backing, but not that keen on it, in the yards and that side of it. And the line of dogs that I got, these were from Jeff Jolly. They were very, very strong, bloody good cattle dogs, and they just a little bit too much bite for me, in the yards. So I probably just leant towards from then on towards the kelpies, and I had quite a lot of Jack Body, Glen Logie stuff.
Yep.
In the early days. I found that those probably some of as good a mustering dogs that I would have seen. And when you get a Glen Logie bloodline sort of crossing over with the Liscana, it was a really good cross, because the Liscana had a lot more punch in the yards. But the Glen Logie dogs used to really look, they'd look for sheep. They'd really look out for sheep. And their stock, very good casting.
And what style of dog do you like, mate? Like, you're talking about your casting and your paddock work there. Do you like something bit more paddocky, or?
Yeah, well, look, I just really like them getting to the head if possible.
Yeah,
it's hard to see that sometimes in a kelpie, but correctly to it. But and yeah, I like steadiness. I like just like that. If you're working your dogs, I like them to be natural. Outside. I don't want to be hunting them off all the time. I'd like to think that they can settle behind a mob if you're driving them, or if they're bringing towards you. I mean, you've got different types. I know that you get your real yardy types, but I like that all round dog. But I probably do lean a bit towards that correctness outside. But I mean, you still got to have back and bark, and you do suffer a little bit by losing that punch. But I certainly like them to balance well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, an example is that I find that even with a yard dog, not a yard dog, even with a really pushy dog, if you're weighing lambs, or you're drafting lambs and that sort of thing, and they're not covering, doesn't matter, at the back, even the back of a drafting, a forcing rate area,
yep,
you're going to have broken necks, and you're going to have a real mess. So that's why I put a fair bit of emphasis on sort of that cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cover and stock sense, all right?
Yeah, that's right.
Ever have to have a few harsh words with blokes as you're managing them about their team and try and redirect them?
I got to be conscious my dogs are in order too. You do, but there's one thing that we've always done, and that's with Romani, where I've been working, and the other fellas that have worked with us and are listening to this, they'll realise that we always have 20 or 30 sheep at each house where the blokes are on the farms, and up north, we try to have half a dozen steers, heifers, on a cattle place where they can work their young dogs. I've been to places when I was young in the Jackaroo that they just wouldn't let you work your pups, which is absolutely bloody hopeless. And so I learnt there to give everyone a really good go to sort of be able to break their dogs in. And when I was down in Victoria, TAFE asked me to do sort of schools on weekends, and I used to just get about. It wasn't the schools that you see with a lot of these fellas now doing really good jobs, with a couple of days, 2 or 3 day schools, where they take only a few people right through. That this was a TAFE set up where I would have had 30 farmers for 1 day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, a couple of them could bring 1 or 2 pups, and you just do it as an example. But it was mainly looking at me, my idea of training, not saying it's ideal, but looking at my idea of it, because you could with 30 people, you couldn't let them all work their dogs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, it'd be a very long day.
But it was interesting in those days because you'd be going and having doing a course there, and you get there's always someone that wants to pull you down.
Yeah.
And you'd be in the shearing shed, and there'd be an old bloke up the back and saying, "Yeah, but what about, I like to see a dog, that's 3 hairs under the chin." And I'd be talking about something about a tail stuck up in the air. So I know you've got to have the tail in the air. That shows a lot of force. It's straight up in the air and all this sort of stuff. And so I'd usually say, "Well, actually, a fair bit. Would you like to sort of address the group?" And no, he didn't want to go near it.
Hand went down pretty quick.
Yeah, but no, that was enjoyable.
And that's pretty admirable as well, because we often hear about, people with young dogs and they don't have stock to train on. Was that something that you implemented and had to get buy-in? Or was that always kind of a practice for the company?
No. I had to basically, buy that in. Yeah. And we've always, and now what we do with the company here is that quite often once a year we just do you might meet in the morning at 9 o'clock, and you have a morning, a bit of a chat before morning tea on training, and then you go and all the staff bring their young dogs, and you have a sausage sizzle, and then you work them in the afternoon, and then you set up a little bit of a trial just for their young dogs, no old dogs allowed.
Yeah.
And so we do that. And it's a good thing to bring all the properties together. It's a good morale type thing. And a lot of the time they don't meet up with each other that much.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't have a lot of interaction between properties, right?
And competition.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen over the years those dogs and people improve?
Oh, unbelievably. And I remember when Steve Condell came up, every now and again I'd have a visiting lecturer.
Yeah.
And we all know Steve. And he does that great. He's got a great way with it. But I mean, his comment at the last place I've been involved with, he said, he just couldn't get over the keenness of the young people and the quality of the young dogs. And I've noticed over the years, a lot of the young fellas following up the older trialers and people improving their bloodlines to a huge degree.
Yeah.
It's really good to see.
What do you think? What do you think pushes that or triggers that?
I think it helps that we also push it. I mean, in the company, and the managers push it, the importance of good dogs, but also quite often, on a Friday afternoon at knock-off time, a few beers and give your pups a run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the yards, that sort of thing happens a lot.
It's an investment in your people, and not only in your people, in their teams. So it's an investment in the whole business, right? And camaraderie.
Yeah, no, it is good. I mean, the human side of it is that, I mean, any company is probably the most valuable resource out of the whole lot. You know, if you get your staff right. When I managed a property called the Bulls Run Station. Before I came here for 16 years on the Murrumbidgee between Wagga and Narrandera. And we actually held the New South Wales Utility Championships there for quite a few years. You know, that was also really, you know, really enjoyable there with the dogs, you know, the importance of the dogs. That property was sheep and cattle.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you've obviously seen a lot of young people come through and continue on in other places and other roles. But has there been anyone that's sort of taught you a lot, that's been under you and you've helped train up, but they've
learning as the trainer?
Yeah. Has there been anyone like that you know you might still bounce ideas off and talk to regularly?
Yeah, I mean, people that are under you, sort of thing. You mean?
Yeah.
Look. There have been, and it really surprises me with some of the young people just how they pick things up, and a lot of the times, you know, they'll go along and clean you up at trials and all that sort of thing. And when you've only introduced them to it, you know, not that long ago, but look, I mean, I can't name. There's a lot of fellas that I know, and I've been recently with Romani, that you'll see a lot of the boys up doing extremely well in trials.
Yeah.
But no, not. I just admire how quickly they picked up and concentrated on it. You know, really worked on it, and gone way ahead. It's really good to see.
If you get one of these young guys that come up to you and ask about a dog, do you, depending on where they're working within the company, what their role is and where they're actually located, like physically, do you recommend different like prefixes or studs to them? Like maybe try this line for here, or try a dog from someone else up there?
Yeah, certainly. As far as, I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, the thing is, these days, I mean, they're worth so much money, aren't they? Too.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I've been pretty kind in the past with all the staff. You know, when I've been breeding dogs, is, you know, station hands can't pay thousands and thousands of dollars for pups.
Absolutely.
You know, and I know the pups are worth that, but they can't afford that. So a lot of the times we've been pretty kind on all that sort of thing. But look, recommendations. You know, over the time with a lot of the Kelpie, really well-known Kelpie breeders, I've pushed them that way. You know, and especially for different traits. You know, when you look at sort of really hard backing dogs and good outside work, I've sort of pushed them in different directions.
Yeah.
But also guided, you know, a lot of them with training, but they pick it up in no time. Yeah, unbelievable.
Some of these younger guys that you've got coming through, have you ever gone, coming trial on the weekend, I might not actually give this guy any more advice right now. Might just shush right there for a sec.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I remember when I got that first Liscana dog, I was only a young fella, and Des Vincent, I went to a trial at one stage, and he was the one that, you know, I got the dog off, and I used to listen to him on training, and some of the other fellas around. And I remember Malcolm Peake and Steve Wayman and all those fellas were in the scene then. And you know, as far as that goes, it was incredible just how you know important it all was at that stage. You know. Yeah. So.
You were going to ask something a second ago.
I was going to ask. You said there how you have passed a few pups on and stuff to station hands. I do know you passed on one that's come out now and been quite successful. And you also gave the same fella, the mother of that dog to trial for a bit. Like, how does it make you feel seeing someone come out and do that with something you had as a young pup?
Oh yeah, no. Look, it's great. And actually, what I missed the point before because I went to a trial with that fellow. I lost track, but and I cleaned him up, and he was and I couldn't believe it. And so now I'm in that position now all the time because I'm not in a working situation where people are, if I go to a trial regularly, I've got to get used to being beaten by people that I've maybe helped and started and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, no, it's a great, Laura. It's great to see. I've got a old dog who's passed away now, Trooper, and there's a lot of. He's been, just a really handy sire for station dogs. He's been nothing necessarily outstanding, but you get a bit. You see them come up and do a great job in a trial, and it's really good feeling. And my main thing was to breed dogs that are work dogs at the time, because at Garangula, they're the place that is down here at Harden. I mean, they wean about 33,000 lambs, 30 to 33,000 lambs, and I mean, it's just crazy if you haven't got good dogs, dealing with that number.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And dealing with numbers like that, we often hear trial dogs don't make good work dogs and work dogs don't make trial dogs. But here's a bloke that's done both with big numbers. Where's your opinion there?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of those comments might have come from originally from Three Sheep trials, where people, are playing around with Three Sheep and they've got the dog so far off the sheep. And win Three Sheep trials and then think that now can I put that in a work situation, a real work situation, but a lot of the Three Sheep trials dogs now probably do work that, but no, I disagree with it. I think are you talking yard and utility?
Oh, really?
Yeah, yard and utility trials, those practical trials. They're very good work dogs as well. Mostly, I mean, you do get a few that pussyfoot around the course, and you think, well, if I'm going to give that a pretty hard day on crossbreeds, they probably won't do too well.
Yeah, be a long day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And mate, you mentioned obviously Trooper no longer with us. What's your current team of dogs there?
Look, I've dropped right back to just I've only got 4.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, and they're mostly bitches, but I on purpose because I've only got 70 acres here, a handful of sheep, and have cattle on agistment, and so when I was a general manager of Romani, I could go down and help. I'd help weigh lambs or do something like that. But at the moment, as far as real work goes, it's quite hard. So I'm a bit like you people.
Yeah.
I got a small block. And,
yeah. Except we could fit ours into yours a few more times.
Yeah, but it's always been a passion of mine, and it's something that I find relaxing. Apart from catching a trout occasionally,
yeah,
I find very, very relaxing. Breaking in pups. I find that I get a huge thrill out of taking a little pup, through to the stages of. I usually work them on, words and then whistles, and I just find that, it's probably one of the most relaxing things that I can do. Yeah.
You still just take the esky down and crack a beer and train a couple of young ones?
Not really, unless I've got a couple of the people that live pretty close to me that are into the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. but not on my own. That
what is it about the that breaking in the pups, and what do you find relaxing about it? Because a lot of people will actually be vice versa, right? They might get worked up about it.
Yeah, no, I just find it if the pup. I mean, I haven't got any, because I'm in a position that I can't work down, that really worky dog. I haven't got the work to work them down and in a real work situation. So I'm looking for that, that really natural pup. And it's so good to see them, that natural work, and you just putting little touches to them. But if you have to spend your whole time screaming and shouting and telling him to get off and get back and to do that, well, that's not enjoyable. I know.
It's frustrating at times.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably one of the things too. When I was jackarooing, is that I remember one of the things I made a point of getting good dogs is that a couple of the managers, I remember seeing, 6 dogs me helping the manager, me with no dogs as a junior jackaroo, and the manager there with 6 dogs trying to put lambs up in the shed, and him doing his block, and then the whole lot sitting in the back of the ute looking at him, and the next minute lambs coming over my head as the manager was throwing them in. And I thought, no, I think there's a better way than this.
There's a question just come through from Rick Freeman. He said, hello, Andrew. What has been the biggest learning mistake or mistakes you made with a dog or dogs, and what did you gain from that education?
Yeah, good point. My biggest mistakes are pushing them too early, without a doubt. And maybe when I was younger, seeing a young pup go flying over the backs of sheep, without just naturally, and then probably allowing him to do it too young, and then getting hurt. The other thing was just putting too much direction. I've got a lot more relaxed with my dogs. I used to be trying to put too much direction on them too young, and I just think that, I mean, it depends on the temperament of the dog, but I just think I was going too early, and I've certainly learnt to drop back.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And mate, you mentioned obviously different properties, different terrain, different stock. What does an all-rounder look like to you? And are there many genuine all-rounders?
Yeah, a good point. I sort of like, if the dog, if you're casting him out on a group of sheep and they search, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They cast out and they break out, and I don't like to see them chopping the head either. Like when they come out, I don't mind if they got some really good work outside and they're coming around as they're bringing a mob towards you on the wings, and they have a bark or something, as far as a real work sense in moving a mob. But I just don't like that sort of that chopping on the head. And in the yards, I like to see them, free backing and want to do it, and not for me to be sort of trying to chase them up there or do anything like that all the time.
Begging them to get up there.
And just show, try to show them what to do, not tell them.
Yeah.
If that sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But that, Laura, that all-rounder, also probably one thing I didn't mention, which is probably the most important thing, is temperament. Is that once you've got those outside abilities right, and you've got a whole lot of staff and you've got a whole lot of swearing and carrying on and noise and everything like that, and if you've got dogs that are a bit down in the nature, and I've been let down in my earlier days, when I first started trialing with a dog that had the most amazing ability, and you get right through to the finals in a trial, and then someone might crack a stock whip, at a showground, and the next minute out of the arena into the back of the ute, and you're left there standing. Very embarrassing.
I was going to say that sounds like a personal experience.
Yeah, it is. It happened at the Lucendale. I was in a situation that I was in a winning situation for the whole South Australian Championship, and she was going so well, and something. I don't know. It was a. You know how they sometimes get those potatoes and they have an electric fence going through it and they're banging and carrying on. And anyway, she didn't like it. She's gone. So embarrassing. I've always trained them to a stock whip ever since then.
Yep.
Yeah. Get them desensitized to the noise.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've touched on trialing there, and you've touched on like yard, three sheep, utility. You've had a crack at everything.
Look, the only three sheep one I had was with a Glenloggie dog and that border collie way back in Koroit in Victoria, and I zipped around with the Glenloggie dog and couldn't believe myself that I actually I didn't win it. I think I might have won the sort of the real what do you call it? You know, on the first trialer. You know,
yeah.
And but. He was just a real natural. But no, look, the part with the three sheep trialing too is that, I mean, it's a real challenge, but I mean, it's usually all through the week as well, you know, and, you know, if you're doing full-time jobs or you're managing farms, you can't be going to a lot of the times those sort of things. But, but probably the one I like most, but I don't usually do many because of, I don't know, just don't get to them. But I respect the utility trial hugely.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's a long cast, when we were at Bulls Run, we had a really, you know, it wasn't really long cast, but it was, what was it? Maybe 150, 200 metres, say, 200 metres or so. And the sheep were really, really wild. You know, that the weathers that just take off. And with your dog, you know, you really see the good dogs that would go out and without too much said from the handler, and they'd balance those sheep and bring them down. And sometimes the best if the handler didn't say a bloody word.
Yeah.
And then if they missed them, the sheep just headed off because the paddock was 1.5 k's long. They'd just head off. They'd be gone. Sort of thing. So, but those trials were good. But I mean, I'm really enjoy the yard trials too now because I mean they're more available. There's so many around, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I just, you know, I'm not as competitive these days because I'm not getting around to them. I might get around a few more now.
Yeah, that'd be great to see around. We have seen you around at a couple this year and judging. Obviously, you enjoy judging. What is it that you enjoy about judging?
Yeah, I mean, when I started judging originally, I actually thought I became a better trialer too, because you know you could really concentrate on the mistakes people are making, and you know, and the really good and the really good stockmen, just where they naturally stand and that side of the thing. There's so much for stockmanship in those trials.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, look, it's enjoyable. It's pretty tough. It's tough when it goes for 3 days.
Yeah,
that's hard going. You know, your concentration for that length of time. And I think it's because I've got older. That it's just a bit harder for me to concentrate because I mean you've got to give everyone the same fairness. You know, you can't miss anything, and so your concentration is unbelievable all the time. But I just like looking at all the different types of dogs and just watching how the handlers do it. At the recent Australian that I judged, I was really impressed with the ability of the handlers, you know, with their dogs in the actual tight areas. the really tight areas when sheep aren't going to run up a draft and that sort of thing. Their ability now, I just notice how much that's improved, how they can work them around the backs exactly to where they want to, identify the sheep to move, which sheep to move. It was really obvious to the ones that did well.
And trialling's obviously been very influential to you. Like, you've spoken a lot about it. What is it that you love about it?
I mean, I enjoy all the people involved. Yeah, there's quite a few now I don't know.
Yeah.
Because years ago you'd go along, you'd know absolutely everyone, but now only I go along, and with my age group there's only a few trialing probably really now. But it's great to see such a young group coming on. No, it's just the comradeship and sort of really good to have a look at everyone's. I enjoy looking at all the dogs, and just seeing all the good young ones coming up in the different bloodlines, because when quite often when I'm judging, I might ask someone, how is that after they've had a run or something, how is that dog bred? Mm-hmm. It's just interesting, for me to, with my breeding program or anything, with which dogs to use, and the actual progeny. Sometimes you see a dominant sire, their progeny come through, and they might be, at a big trial, they might be first, second, third.
Yeah.
Right down on a really tough trial, and you look at it and you think, gee, there's no doubt about that. That's pretty. That's throwing pretty well, that dog.
And you touched on there seeing a whole heap of new faces and like younger people like operating their dogs or flicking their dogs around the back or forcing pans and whatnot. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen over the last? How long actually have you been trialing, and what are some of the changes you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started trialing it. Would have been about. I've been trialing about 45 years, I suppose.
Yeah,
45 years, and I mean the dogs, the changes in the dogs too. I find that if I look back at my dogs now and the dogs that I used to look at, I think there's quite a lot more outside work. Natural outside work in those earlier ones, just the mustering type dogs, but then they may not have been, don't think they were as punchy in the yards.
Yeah.
But the handlers, I mean, the yard dog thing's just gone bloody amazing, just how popular it's become. I mean, in those days there was, I was a young handler at 24 or 5 or something, but there's just so many really, really young ones coming through, and the female or the women that are trialing are doing so well, really well, coming through. Now it's so good to see that side of it. Bloody hard to beat.
So for you, what makes a good trial, and which one's probably your favourite?
Sorry, a trialer or trial?
Trial.
Oh, trial.
That's a good question itself, though. What makes a good trialer?
Yeah.
No, you mean location-wise, or
everything.
I mean, just the yard trial side of it. I mean, our local ones, sort of Gundagai, and that are really great. I mean, Gundagai's a reasonably small, town, but huge trial, huge show that they have there. And local ones, Cootamundra, I don't get round to a lot of them these days. West Wyalong's one coming up that I do want to go to, but I might only do probably 2 or 3 a year. But when I was back in near at Bulls Run Station, we used to run. We're involved with the Wagga Yard Dog Club there with all the Wagga trials and all that side of it. We're sort of right into it with Steve Condell and Anthony Quinn and the boys down there. It was pretty good.
So entertainment makes a good trial too, right?
What's that?
Entertainment and big characters.
And we had entertainment absolute fully.
But to answer the question that you, or to re-ask the question you asked then, what makes a good trialer?
Oh, gee. I'd say just their stockmanship, their ability to read stock, and I mean, obviously they need a bloody good dog, but I just think you can see people sometimes with a really good dog, and you think, gee, that person's just in the wrong place, and they're not just, they're not reading those stock well at all. They've got the gate too closed up. They've got, they're putting too much pressure on the dog. I always think of calmness, with a trialer, just keep calm. As soon as they start shouting and, you've got them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're in a final with someone and then they halfway through and they start, the voice starts, they start getting cross and annoyed with their dog, you think, now here we go. This will be good. Yeah.
And is there
you've got to be patient, really patient with
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a most memorable trialing achievement or memory?
I remember when I was in Victoria, they used to have a lot of farm dog trials, sheep fencing. I remember winning sheep fencing, the Kilmore trials, the Victorian Championship one stage, there's a few around, but up here they had a Southern New South Wales. I remember out originally in some of the. It's not where it is now at Uberta, but in another area. There's a few of those trials were really that I think back to.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have won a big one for a long time now, because with my job I just wasn't getting to them either.
Yeah.
Which you got to get to them to win them.
Absolutely. And speaking of your job, mate, we are conscious that you have a meeting tonight, so we promise not to hold you up too much longer.
We're on.
Well, but we have had a few questions here, but we've actually been talking about them as we go, so they've kind of missed the boat a bit. But there is one here from Rick that I will just touch on quickly, and I'm going to touch on it because you do like a good paddock dog and something a bit natural, and he's basically touched on. He recently watched something with a good casting dog get out, and do you believe that we're seeing less of these good casting dogs because of technology also and time, right? So we're using bikes and buggies more frequently.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think when originally I did a fair bit of horse work in my early days, with cattle places, and I think training them on horses too. And the dogs we got a lot fitter, and they couldn't be carried all the time. They'd have to run behind the horse out there and work the sheep or cattle or whatever, and that. But yeah, I think a lot of the time, the dogs are in the back on the smaller properties too. They're in the back of the vehicle, and they get out there and you let them out, which is what you naturally do to bring the sheep in or the cattle in. But I think they used to use them a lot more mustering, in a mustering style, in the earlier days. And I think our dogs are that we're not using them to that extent. But I mean, there's a lot of blokes that are working in really rough country and scrubby country, and they do use the dog's got to get into scrub and bring out. I think I might have listened to one of Lance Clifford's podcasts, and saying that his dogs were going into scrub, and pulling out the sheep there, naturally.
Yeah.
Mm.
And is there any advice you have to someone wanting to pursue a career, whether it be in the ag industry or just the dog community?
Yeah, you mean in farm management sort of thing, or? Yeah, one of the things that I think I've dealt with before is that make sure that it is something that you've got a passion for, and if you have, get right into it. And if you're a jackaroo, you be a jackaroo for a while, and don't be a jackaroo again. You can be a station hand, and don't be a station hand again. Be an overseer, and just keep looking if that's what you want to do. Don't stand still. Just keep rolling. And if that's where you want to go, if you want to manage a property, just try to jump in a little bit over your head at times, and don't be too worried about it. But make sure that you're unbelievably have an attention to detail, tidy, and honest, and all those things. And think of others.
Great advice, mate. I just want to touch on one quick thing there. You said was jump in over your head. Why jump in over your head?
Look, a lot of the times you get so many times. I've had my first management job, and I thought, God, bloody hell, I'm too young to do that. But you go into it and you do your homework on it, and you rise to the occasion. And so many times, we've had young people. We're great in this company to give young people a go, and to go and manage properties. And a lot of times you think they might be just a bit too young to do that job, and so you give it to them before you know it, they're well and truly entrenched into it, doing well. So that's what I was meaning. Don't be scared about just going ahead and biting the bullet.
Jump in and tread water.
Yeah.
As hard as you can.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mate, is there anyone that you'd love to see us sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
I think all the people you've had a chat with. I think, have you talked to Billy Up and Chris Sellers?
We have. Haven't had Chris on yet. Been playing, trying to tie him up with Chris, but
have you had Anthony Quinn on?
There's on our hit list once again. So a couple of great fellas there.
No, well, he would create quite a stir, I think, but he would probably amuse most people.
I like the idea of that.
Okay, let's make it happen, mate. We know you're running tight on time, so we're going to make it real easy for you tonight, because Rick's timing was so good, and we already asked other questions before I asked. So congratulations, Rick Freeman. There's a bag of Enduro coming your way. Thanks for being on, and Andrew, mate, we've got a bag coming your way as well for being a guest. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
All right, no, thank you.
No, that's cool. But we're not going to let you go just that easy.
One last question, as always. Would you rather
who's asking the question?
Laura's going to ask this question to you.
Oh, right, Laura.
Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks, and why?
Bloody hell. I think I'd gee. That's interesting. Must be some psychology behind that, is there?
Nothing at all.
I'll take one on.
Take one on, the one big one.
Yeah, take the big one.
I'm not surprised he said that, because he said take a job that you over your head.
Yeah.
Right? You just go hard.
Yeah.
So, love it.
I thought there might be a bit of psychology behind,
I'm sure there probably is, but I have no psychology degree.
Andrew,
Right.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, mate. We know you're extremely busy, and thanks for putting some time aside for us. We really appreciate it.
Okay. No, thank you. I enjoyed it. Okay.
That's awesome, mate. And thanks for everybody that got on and listened tonight, and your questions, and everyone listening back. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.